So I came to my first family conference in 2017. I met a lot of really great people. And they were sharing their experiences about going to Washington, D.C. and advocating. I live only about 2 hours from Washington, D.C. I live in Delaware. So I was like, you know what? It's really close. Why don't I go just check it out? So in 2018, I had the privilege to go to the Every Life Foundation's Rare Disease Week. And I have, yeah, I have no idea what's going on. Thank you. Um, and so there I got to learn a little bit how to develop your story, how to create your 3-minute, elevator pitch. I got to learn about how you can use that story to really influence policy. I started at the federal level, but then after this trip, I went back home to the state of Delaware and thought, well, what could I do here in Delaware? So I literally just got on the internet and Googled, and I thought newborn screening, Delaware. Newborn screening was new at the time. It was something I wish my son had had. And so I reached out to the program director for the state of Delaware, and I asked her a little bit about NPS. And, I was empowered by all the skills that I learned at the Every Life Foundation and from the NPS Society that week. And so I told them a little bit about my story, a little bit about NPS and why I thought it was important that the state of Delaware included on their newborn screening panel. So she invited me to come to a meeting in a couple of weeks. She said, hey, we're hosting a newborn screening advisory committee meeting. Why don't you come? So I went and I introduced myself. They were very welcoming. Most of you, wherever you live, these are public meetings. You are invited to go. Your voice does matter. Like Amy had mentioned, there's a place for public comment. And so they invited me. And then I asked if I could come and present NPS 1 and why I believe that it should be on the newborn screening panel there in the state of Delaware. And they said, we would love to hear you and learn about your son. And so I had the opportunity to do that. And after I was able to give my presentation, the committee sat there and they voted to add NPS 1 to the newborn screening advisor or the newborn screening panel. And so that was kind of that first, like, wow, I just Googled newborn screening. I just made the contact. I just used my story. What a difference. I hope this makes a difference. And it did. It paid off. In about a year after implementing NPS 1 on their newborn screening panel, in the year of 2020, my daughter was also born in 2020. You guys saw the picture of her. A family reached out to me. And they said, our son just got diagnosed with NPS 1. That statistically may not have happened for the next 10 to 15 years in the state of Delaware, but he was caught within the first 10 months of newborn screening. That child was then enrolled into a gene therapy clinical trial, and he is doing fabulously. He plays with my daughter. We have play dates. And they reach out to me and they tell me, and I don't think it was me, right? Like, it was a group effort, but they're like, had you not shared that and convinced them, we would have had a very different diagnostic journey. And that was something that I knew I wanted to do when I knew that it was available. That's why I became passionate about newborn screening, because if I could make anybody else's journey with this just a little bit easier or have better outcomes, then that's what I'm going to do. So you don't have to be an expert. You can always have opportunities to develop your skills, especially with organizations like the Every Life Foundation. There are webinars, there are training programs. The National NPS Society has the advocacy committee, which I am chair of. We welcome you to come. We're going to be increasing our meetings. And so we'd like to see you there. Sharon is working with me, and we are so lucky to have her with us. Your story can have an impact, and your experience humanizes these policies and decisions people are making. And this is not just at a federal level, but a state level. Next, yeah. So this is my daughter. We are in Delaware's capital of Dover. I have developed a relationship with one of our state senators who there is a rare disease advisory council in the state of Delaware. You guys, that's another opportunity for you to get plugged in for your advocacy efforts. And she is a champion of that committee. And so, again, it's just developing those relationships. And other places are going to your newborn screening advisory councils for each of your states. Again, a lot of them are actually virtual now, which is awesome. You can also start going to other states. newborn screening advisory councils. I have gone to 10 other states' newborn screening advisory committee meetings, and I have had an impact there as well. And I'm going to be really happy to share another story with you. So today I'm here to talk about the realized and unrealized impact of your advocacy. I'm going to share the stories with you. Next slide. So I already shared the story with you about the baby caught in Delaware, but I reached out to the family and asked them if they could give me a few words about what that newborn screening process was like to them and what being able to catch that early meant to their family. And the mother, she said that her newborn screening gave us something every parent deserves, the chance to protect our child's future. It gave us time, it gave us hope, and it gave us options. She went on to say, that newborn screening is a simple, inexpensive blood spot done shortly after birth. It's designed to identify rare but serious conditions, often before any symptoms appear, giving families the chance to act early before damage is done. For our family, this test changed everything. When our baby was born, they looked perfect, peaceful, healthy, and thriving. We were overjoyed. There was no sign of anything wrong, but just days later, we received a call from our pediatrician. Our child had screened positive for MPS 1, a rare and progressive condition that silently affects nearly every system in the body. Hearing those words were devastating. It was terrifying news, but it also gave us a head start. Something most families in this situation never get, because the condition was caught so early, it became our lifeline. Thanks to newborn screening, we had time to understand our options, consult with specialists, and make informed decisions about treatment. We weren't forced into rushed, desperate choices, and we were able to act quickly and begin care before any symptoms even appeared. This inexpensive test, just a few dollars per newborn, spares families the unimaginable suffering and gives babies the best possible chance at a healthy future. The cost of treating a child diagnosed late, but both emotionally and financially, is staggering. The cost of screening, almost nothing by comparison. No family wants to get a call saying something is wrong, but if that call must come, every family wants to receive it early. When doctors are optimistic and hopeful, not filled with worry and regret, we were lucky enough to get that early call. Our doctors were encouraged, even joyful, because the condition had been caught in time. They told us we had a real chance, and they were right. Our child is now thriving, meeting milestones, smiling, growing, and doing everything we hoped they would. Newborn screening gave us something every patient deserves, and that's a chance to protect our child's future. It gave us time, it gave us hope, and it gave us options. Every baby deserves that same chance. Screening for MPS 1 and for other rare treatable conditions doesn't just save lives, it preserves our futures. It rescued ours. We will never stop being grateful it was in place when our child was born. Our story could have ended so differently, and we never take for granted how lucky we were that it didn't. So that was my friend who likes to remain anonymous, but she is a grateful parent. So another realized impact, and this is a little bit looser. So through my advocacy journey and through just meeting each and every one of you, inspired one of my friends to become involved with newborn screening advocacy in the state of New Jersey. And so she had actually got connected with another rare disease mother. And that rare disease mother let her know, like, hey, there's a newborn screening advisory committee meeting going on in the state of Massachusetts about continuing MPS 1 on the newborn screening panel. They were trying to decide whether or not to continue or to discontinue it as an automatic screen. So she's like, I'm not able to make the meeting, but can you? So 2 days later, I hop on this Zoom call. I'm with the state of Massachusetts Newborn Screening Advisory Committee. I am the only rare disease parent there other than their one person on their advisory council. I'm glad that I went. The person presenting information about MPS 1 did not have completely accurate information, so I was able to give a little input there. And then there were a couple of physicians who were not convinced that newborn screening was should be that MPS 1 should be on the newborn screening panel, and that was because of false false positives and the mental impact that that would have on families in their first couple of weeks of bonding with their child. And then another physician who was not convinced that early treatment made significant difference in the course of a patient's life. So, of course, I had my rebuttal because I strongly disagree with both of those statements. And luckily, the committee went on to vote to continue adding MPS 1 to the newborn screening panel, and it is a permanent condition. Those two voted yes with trepidation. So I just wanted to make note of that because I'm proud of that trepidation. And so my friend reached back out to me literally just 2 weeks ago, and she goes, Stephanie, I was like, my sister's neighbor's best friend's sister, I mean, very convoluted. His baby just got caught with MPS 1 in Massachusetts. I went to that meeting on February 12th, and that baby was born on March 4th. And so they were able to put her into contact with me, and I reached out to her to ask if she had any statement that she'd like to share with you all about the impact of newborn screening for her son. She said, "You may think in this day and age that we want to avoid providing false positives to families for a rare terminal genetic disorder like MPS 1, avoiding undue trauma to families. Like us, we were told the likelihood that our son's positive on the newborn screen was more likely a negative. I can remember the emotion of going back and forth with the potential of this diagnosis, what this meant for my son. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's a whirlwind. Now, standing here as the mother to a child with this devastating diagnosis, I can tell you, I wish this was a false positive. It is difficult considering where our son would be had we not received our true positive. Newborn screening saved his life. My son was diagnosed on March 19th with MPS 1, and just 2 days later, we began treatment. To paint a picture, my son was intubated for the first month of his life. We are certain that his treatment of enzyme replacement therapy removed the gags from his lungs. We saw the enzyme work in his system as they extubated him. They removed him from CPAP, and now and removed him from high flow oxygen. Today, my son is able to breathe room air on his own at the age of 4 months. This was something most professionals told us he wouldn't ever be able to do. She says, please understand that an early diagnosis impacts these children's lives greatly. It saves lives like Declan. And this is from Michaela Chase, MPS 1 parent out of Massachusetts. Her son is now in Minnesota awaiting his transplant. So if you guys can all, send him your good luck there. Here's his picture. She wanted to share this. She wanted us to be able to visually see the difference in his ability to breathe and the impact that early treatment had on his life. So this is Declan, who has MPS 1. Next one. So the next part is talking about the unrealized impact, and that's up to each and every single one of you. It is important for you to own your story and to share it. You never know where it lands and what impact that's going to have on somebody else's journey with this disease. And as a mother with a son with MPS 1, every single time I go into advocate, I don't just go into advocate for MPS 1. I advocate for MPS 2, MPS 3, MPS 4, 6, 7, and ML. I was able to go back and advocate for MPS 2 to be added to the newborn screening panel in the state of Delaware, and I'm going back to make sure that they are one of the first states to screen for MPS 4 before it's even on the RUSP. There is one state currently, the state of West Virginia, and so I am in a position that I have a team there at Nemours in their bone dysplasia clinic who is going to help support this effort. So I'm hoping that, again, our stories can make a difference. So, all right, everybody, you probably remember this moment in your life. This was 30 minutes before the MPS diagnosis. This was me holding my son after I had gone and seen a geneticist, and he went home and told me, don't Google MPS 1, don't Google MPS 2, just come back and see our metabolic specialist tomorrow. I was still in denial that evening. I could see the facial similarities, but I was in denial. This was 30 minutes before I walked into that room, and my life would be forever changed. I look a little rough. As you can see, my eyes are swollen. I had done a fair amount of crying, didn't sleep very well. But I'm proud of that person. I look back at her and I said, wow, look how far I've come. It has been 10 years. And I never knew the impact that this journey would have on other people's lives. And so I encourage you to be wherever you're at right now. You don't have to start your advocacy journey today, however you are, because you're here listening. But when you're ready, your story can have an impact. And I hope that you get to have these realized impacts like I have, because it has blessed my life tremendously. So I'm going to hand it over to Sharon, who's going to open us up for questions and answers.
This turned on? Is this on? On. All right, thank you so much for that. All three of you, it is up to all of us. Everyone in this room. I'm so happy to see the number of faces in this room, because we were all advocates the moment we walked in the door. And now you've just collected more information. There were 3 words today that I'm going to walk away with, and I'm going to use. One was interesting. These are interesting times. Dynamic. I've been using uncertainty, but I'm going to use dynamic. Thank you for that, Annie. And then storytelling. Stephanie and I have already started building our team relationship. And I think we've come a long way in a very short time. And the one thing that we agree on so much is the power of storytelling for an advocate, and how important storytelling is. It is the most important tool in our toolbox, and it's free. You own it, and it's yours to share. And right now in particular, it's important that we all come together as a collaboratively together, linking arms, linking hands, because our voices are needed in a very shared collective way right now. So first of all, I have a couple of questions, but I want to see, do we have questions from the audience? Yes. And there's a mic coming.
Hi, Kristen. I have a question for Annie. I am a Hunter syndrome mom and sister and executive director for Project Alive. And I want to ask about some of what you talked about in that kind of cure to care continuum, where obviously as advocates, we're working in all of those sections all the time. But I think right now we have such big concerns around just that FDA approval process. And my little brother died of Hunter syndrome in 2015. And now I have a son that's here who's 6 years old with Hunter syndrome, and his brother's out there playing with him now, and they have hope. We have 2 drugs that have filed under the accelerated approval pathway, another that will hopefully be filing in the near term as well. And what we've seen very recently is a really concerning trend that has been experienced here in this community, and MPS 3 community, of CRLs being issued, these delays, denials, especially in the rare disease community outside of rare cancer. And I think that, it's concerning for us. We need to know, because I think the only reason my son has hope is because of accelerated approval. It has made it possible. And for families like mine, in 6 months, 12 months, our kids lose their voice. They lose the ability to walk. We don't have time to wait, as you mentioned. And I know that many of us advocacy groups here have recently formed a coalition to try to address those concerns with the FDA. We had over 100 patient advocacy groups sign on, over 40,000 people. Thank you to anyone who signed on to that request. But my question to you is, how can Every Life Foundation help us here? You guys are who we look to, and we need your power and your voice to support this fight, because while access and the 100 things that I know you're dealing with at your office and trying to prioritize this year, those are important, but we can't have access if we don't have the approvals in the first place.
So first of all, thank you for the question. I think when I use the term dynamic, I use it with that environment very much in mind. And I need you to know that we are not just watching what's happening within the regulatory environment, we are engaging with what's happening within the regulatory environment for this community. But as you know, what's happening is happening across the board in the rare disease community, and we are very concerned about it. And we are trying to be very careful in how we engage both privately and publicly, because the players at FDA are changing all of the time also, as you all know. And so what we do publicly, we don't want to have damaging ramifications also for all of our communities that will be long lasting. So I do want to say that. I don't want anyone to think that Every Life is not engaging, though. I need to be very clear about that. We are having conversations with leadership at FDA. We are eager to have conversations with all of your groups and see how you want us to be engaging differently if there's something you don't think we're doing enough of. And we're also working with our industry partners and our coalition of industry to understand what they're doing and how we can be supportive there. I feel like you're probably going to feel like that's a non-answer, but I need you to know we are leaning into this. I feel like that's the best thing we can say right now. Watching the PRV, watching the user fee negotiations, engaging in those is also really important for us. And we have had constant calls with Congress as well, so that they're aware that this environment is incredibly damaging for our industry partners and most of all for our patient communities. I will also say one of the things we are very concerned about is that what's novel right now is that so much of this is playing out in the press and in the trade press. And there is a little bit of this that we worry about could be for theater. So not to say it's not happening, but is some of this to push the hands of investors, to push the hands of FDA? Like there's so much push and pull and back and forth that we've never seen before. It's like watching a tennis match every day. But who we worry about the most are the families who are watching this. And at the end of the day are wondering what's happening to their products, what's happening to their clinical trials, what's happening to their EAPs. Those are the people who are, and it's you, it's everyone in this room, but it's in other communities too. And lives are being damaged, and that has to stop. We're so worried about that. And so when I put up those words in bold around consistency, predictability, transparency, we have to take the temperature down, because it's not just about companies being able to plan, investors being able to count on their investments, clinical trials being able to have to move forward, but it's about families having to be able to sleep at night knowing that their trials are going to be able to move forward, that they're not going to be shut out of sites, that the access that they're being afforded right now through compassion will be enabled. We're very worried about that. So I just want you to know we are messaging on that as well. But if there are efforts that are being led that you think that we are not engaging in, that we should, we're very open to talking about that.
And to just piggyback on what Annie was saying is that there are organizations who are addressing this, but we would like to work with our advocates here to make them comfortable to they can address this themselves. You can pick up the phone, you can call your legislators, you can send the letters, you can schedule your own appointments if you want to meet them. And so being able to tell your story, even just personally, does have an impact. I would say just stay vigilant in all of the notifications that come out from these larger organizations where you can sign on, that they already have templates available for you to send these emails and such. But I also just want to encourage you to just open up your browser and write an email or pick up your phone and make a phone call yourself. because every little bit I think does help. So.
Scott.
Hi. First, I want to thank everybody on the panel for the great information. Thank you. My name is Scott Hopkins. I'm an MPS 1 father, and I had questions on genomic screening. One, is the idea to add it to the newborn screening process? And if so, with the screening, would it include any genetic condition, or like with the RUSP, they only test for things that have treatment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say in terms of whether it's being pushed to be added to kind of public health newborn screening, it depends on who you ask a little bit. I think ultimately there is a consortium of people who would really like to see that path where it would be part of the public health program that we know now. And that is, I think, part of the work that's being done by these consented research projects to better understand what does it look like to do this at scale? What mechanisms need to be in place? How quickly can we do this? What is the appetite from families to have this done on their newborns right away? The way that it is being rolled out now and how I would absolutely imagine it would be rolled out if it were to be in a public health program is that it unlikely would include every genetic disease. We certainly wouldn't screen for adult onset diseases, for example, things like breast cancer variants or anything like that. What's being done now is that there is anywhere from 200 to maybe 600 genes that are being focused on. They're all associated with earlier onset, so child onset. They use the word often actionable diseases. So their definition of treatment is a little broader than what we might see typically in a public health space. Part of the reason why we have so many restrictions in terms of the characteristics of disease at the public health level is because it's a mandate. And so we have to kind of reach different levels of legal authority to be able to say this is so important that we will mandate it. So my thought is that if this goes into a public health, we would see a similar model where there would be a select defined number of genes, and it would be a significant number. I mean, it's 200 to 600 is not small, that are, clearly treatable, clearly change the outcome of the child. And then there may be, and this is being explored by some of the research projects where they have a second panel that you can choose to also be screened for. And those are ones where there's maybe active clinical trials that you could be enrolled in. So there isn't necessarily a clear treatment, but there's a possible. And so parents could choose to also be screened for an additional list of diseases that might meet, that type of criteria. So that is, I think, how we would see it rolled out at present.
We could take one more question from the audience. Okay, I want to close this by saying thank you so much for mentioning the letter that, Kristen, that was just shared a week ago. And we are upwards of, now do I hear 40,000 signatures on this letter? But let us not rest on our laurels. Let's follow up with that. Can you send an email? Can you send a letter? Can you make a call to your representative? We must continue to elevate and share our voice, that we, in a very timely way, that we address these issues that we're seeing trending, because it's important. As Annie said, time is a precious commodity to us, and we don't have time to sit back and rest on our laurels. That's a lot of signatures, but we can do more. I want to thank each of you. I am so excited to continue to work on advocacy with this organization. in the coming months and time forward. And I look forward to advocating with each and every one of you. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to pass this on to Terry and Dr. Lau for a fireside chat. Thank you to our panel.